Howdy guys, welcome to another texture review video for Minecraft 1.soon. I say 1.soon because there's no official release date for this texture pack yet, and changes continue to be made to it. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through and reviewing the texture changes from the version 1 pack to the version 2 pack, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and why. So let's go ahead and get started here. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be showing you the version 1 textures, and then the version 2 textures. And then I'll switch back and forth between the version 1 and the version 2 so you can see some of the differences here between the blocks. So initially I had a bunch of blocks which I didn't like and items which I didn't like over here. And then over here we have in the green section the ones I did like. And we're going to see how these are going to change over the course of this video. So let's start off here with the items and the blocks in the section which I did not like. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So first of all, the sign did not really change much. I still think the sign needs letters that are more representative of exactly what it shows in the world. So the lettering on the sign is a little bit dull right now. You can see that very obviously if I just type anything in here. You see the letters stand out, whereas on the item sprite it does not. So I still think that needs to be improved. Same with the glowstone dust. This actually did change a little bit from version 1 to version 2, as you can see here, if I switch back and forth. However, it didn't change by much. It still looks like maybe a copper dust to me. From if any of you guys play modded, it looks kind of like that. And this might be just a opinion difference between myself and Jappa, who does the textures for Mojang. But I feel like glowstone should be brighter than this on a fundamental scale, essentially. So I still think that needs some work. The Prismarine crystals as well. I feel like the Nether Quartz texture, the Nether Quartz, let me see if I can just pull this up here. The Nether Quartz bit right here. I think this would be better as a Nether crystal. This just looks like a pile of, I don't know, just like basic blobs, essentially. I'm not really sure how else to describe it. Almost like beans, like magical beans, basically. So I still think this one needs to be improved. The diamond has improved significantly. I said before it needed some shimmer, and it now does have that shimmer. It has a little bit more definition. You can see a little bit of a crystal structure right here. So we're actually going to remove the diamond from the bad side, and we are actually going to move this over to the good side. I'm actually very happy with the changes made to the diamond in this texture pack. So we're going to put this right over here, right there. So yeah, diamond was greatly improved. Like I said, this little definition he had on the bottom side helps a lot with the shape of the diamond. So it's changed a little, but it's still basically consistent and basically representative of what I imagine the diamond to be like. And then the Purpur Block, this might not change. I don't like the Purpur Block as it currently is. Moving on, the beds did not change, but I've actually become a little bit more, it's actually grown on me, this texture. The pillow does not stand out as much as it did previously to me. So I'm not going to put it in the good section, but I'm going to remove it from the bad block section. Moving on now to the door, I still think the door could do with just slightly less highlighting in all these spaces, and I would actually consider taking out this middle section because the handle extends into it. Although I recently realized that the door in my own house actually looks very, very similar to this exact door. So for that reason, I'm actually going to take it off the bad block palette, but I still think it could use some work. The TNT changed a lot from version 1 to version 2. Let me just show you the version 1 and the version 2. You can see it's a lot less orange and a lot less blue on the top. And it actually changed enough that I think this TNT is actually now one of the good blocks. So we are going to move this over here. But the shading on the top definitely improved a lot. Jappa listened to my feedback and the feedback from others to reduce the orange and reduce the blue of the wick there on the top of the TNT. So yeah, thank you for listening to our concerns on that, Jappa. Also, the lily pad is greatly improved. There used to be a very well-defined line going straight down the center, and now that's been sort of dulled out now, as you can see. And so I'm saying this is also a very good change. I'm not going to put it in the good textures, but it's definitely not bad anymore. So that I can live with that. I can live with that. Alright, moving on to some of the other textures down here. So here's the version 1 textures for the other blocks in the quote-unquote bad block section. And here are the new textures in the quote-unquote bad block section. So looking at these, going back and forth between them, you can see that the two blocks that have changed the most are the jack-o'-lantern. So the jack-o'-lantern went from being a pumpkin that looked like it was in a tremendous amount of pain to an actual jack-o'-lantern. So again, thank you, Jappa, for listening to the community on this one. Yeah, definitely doesn't look like he's in pain anymore. It looks like a proper jack-o'-lantern with a torch inside of a pumpkin. So we're going to move this over to the good blocks now. So thank you again for listening to us on that one, Jappa. The sponge has also grown on me a little bit. I kind of like that there's actually a visual difference between the two. So this is the wet sponge right here, and this is the dry sponge right here. I still think maybe there could be an improvement on this, but I'm not saying it's bad anymore. So I'm actually getting rid of this. I still do not like the trapdoors. I still think they're very dull, and actually the wood itself, which we'll get to in a minute, I still think could be improved. So finally, the redstone lamp. Let me just show you the difference between version 1 and version 2. I think there's a clear improvement from version 1 to version 2, and it looks actually like a lamp now that's been turned off, that has a little bit of, I guess, age to it. I think it could also be a little bit more light even in the off state, but yeah, I think just lightening a couple pixels will fix that. So I'm actually going to take it off of the bad block palette here, and yeah, that actually is quite promising. As you can see, we have a lot of blocks that were actually taken off and some that were put into the good block state, which we're now going to go over. So the one major change in this first section here of blocks from the version 1 to the version 2 is that the Nether Quartz ore has changed significantly, and this goes along with a corresponding change to the netherrack. So yeah, you can see the netherrack looks a lot different here. And I actually really like both the Nether Quartz ore and the netherrack texture, the new ones here. It looks sort of like almost like an evil hell world flesh type thing, and it actually works really, really well in the nether, as you can see right here. So yeah, I'm thinking this is working very, very well, and I think it will continue to work well if this is the final texture. So I'm leaving both the Nether Quartz ore, and actually I'm putting netherrack in here as well, because I think these are both fantastic, and they also go very well with the nether brick. So yeah, I'm very happy with these netherrack and Nether Quartz ore choices, and the other ones did not change, so I'm still happy with those. The next section of blocks has a couple of changes. So here's the version 1 and here's the version 2. And basically the main changes are the ores have been changed slightly, so they have a little bit of more, I guess, fading in. So you can see some of these pixels here, they still fade into the ore, which I said I really liked in the previous video, and that hasn't changed. I still really like the way these look, especially from a distance where you can sort of just see the faint glow of the redstone in the redstone ore block, for instance, and the same with all the other block types. So nothing has changed there. I still really like those. Also, the glass has changed. So the glass changed from basically having a pixelated corner, a solid pixelated corner slash, to having two smaller single pixel streaks, essentially, which I think is a vast improvement. One thing I think that could be done is that the textures could be connected, but I know Jappa has said that is not going to happen, at least not for the first update of the textures. But maybe in the future they could connect them, because it definitely does make a difference. Here is actually an animation comparing the three different types from a guy called Denator Games. So yeah, that is actually a significant improvement, especially when you consider a lot of people use Optifine and can have these connected and not have the lines separating the blocks. But regardless of that, I feel like it still is a vast improvement over the version 1 glass, because yeah, glass should be relatively clear, and this actually looks really nice. So yeah, that's that. So the next group of items we're going to take a look at is the wall of items, which I really liked in the previous version. So here's the version 1, and here's the version 2, the textures now. So I'll just switch back and forth between them right now. You'll see the beacon, of course, changed a little bit. That's just because the glass texture changed, and it looks really good. Some of the other changes, we have the lava bucket that has changed. Actually, the bucket texture itself changed. to have a little bit more of a shimmer on the side, which I really like. I actually prefer this round bucket to the current bucket. And let's see, the other changes were the potato. Potato changed a little bit, so it's less like a peanut, and I think it's actually more representative of a potato now, so I like that change as well. The only change which I don't like in this set of items is the change to the gold bar. So you can see in the version 1, it's actually a little bit dark, whereas in the version 2, it is super, super bright, especially on the top. Almost to the point where, you know, it seems like there might be some type of like really bright light source above it, shining down upon it. So for that reason, I'm actually going to change the gold bar from the good one, from the good side, to what I consider to be the side needing work. So I think it's just a little bit too bright on the top, and I think it was actually very nice the way it was previously, before this was added in terms of the brightness. Speaking of brightness, I think maybe actually if you put this type of brightness down in the glowstone to make this more bright, that would actually work quite well. Bring some of that gold and that bright gold into the glowstone dust would work quite well. So before we get on to some of the new item changes over there, I want to go through a couple of blocks which have undergone some changes and give some opinions on those. So first up, we got Obsidian, Gold, Emerald, and Diamond. And here is the version 1 of those, and here is the version 2. So the version 1, the Obsidian has changed quite significantly. Actually, all these blocks have changed quite significantly. And I have to say, I prefer the version 1 of the Obsidian, although I'm not necessarily opposed to having this. The reason I prefer the version 1 of the Obsidian is because it doesn't go quite as well with this version 2 here. It doesn't go quite as well with black blocks. So you can see there is quite a contrast here, whereas if I were to switch, let me just switch my resource pack real quick here, to the version 1 textures. You'll see that this goes and blends in a little bit better with the black concrete and also the black concrete powder when compared to the version 2. So let me just switch back real quick here to the version 2. So this one here. And so I prefer the version 1 Obsidian, but I also think this looks good. Also, the version 1 looks better as a nether portal, I think. So yeah, you can see it's a little bit sharper of a contrast and doesn't really fit in quite as well. Because of these big, bold, I guess, scales or boulder pieces coming out of this thing. But yeah, I prefer the version 1, but I'm not necessarily vehemently opposed to the Obsidian version 2. The gold block I think improved a little bit. It used to look like this was popped out. Now it looks like it's popped in and sort of carved out of the gold block, which I think looks better. It's an improvement. The emerald, I think, still needs a bit of a change. It still has the bit on top, which is, I think, causing a lot of issues and causing it to look a little bit strange. The diamond, I think, though, looks good. Like, it's very shiny, it's very bright, and also has a good texture on the front of it. However, I'd like to propose a change to all 3 of these, or actually just 2 of these. I have an image here of what I'd like to see diamond become. So you can see the diamond there. It looks like just like a giant gem block of diamond. And also the emerald shading, I think, is really, really good here. It sort of portrays a field of view into the emerald block, while also not, having sort of something like this coming in from the top. Like, it feels like there's some type of light source from the top here, from the side here, that gives it a bias and makes the block texture look kind of strange. I would prefer the gold block stay this way, but maybe make some slight changes to it. But yeah, overall, I think they're definitely improved, all 3 of them, but just a little bit more work, and I would actually consider the diamond and emerald texture from this image for the official game. Like, I think these look fantastic in this image here. Anyway, those are those blocks. The glass, yeah, I already talked a little bit about the glass. I think it's a vast improvement. One thing I would note, though, in case Jappa watches this, I think this glass pane is a problem. So, I could consider, if I'm walking here and I look into, like, I'm walking in like let's say like a maze, and I come across a glass pane like this, suddenly I can now look. I'm pressing forward right now, and I can't walk forward, and it's not apparent because I'm actually too close to the glass pane. I can't see the top and the bottom. I mean, I could look up and whatever, but I could see this being very frustrating, you know, running into glass panes when you don't expect them. So maybe there's a way we can somehow get, you know, an indicator here, just something small, like a couple like pixels, like 2 pixels like this on this glass pane to sort of show that there's something there. I think that would be important to have that. So that's my feedback on the glass panes, which Jappa asked for specifically on Twitter. Right, let's move on. Okay, the next set of blocks we are going to look at here is the changes to Andesite, Diorite, Granite, and Lapis Lazuli block. And so here's the version 1. Here is the version 2. I'll just switch back and forth between them. So my thoughts on this: I really like the Lapis Lazuli block. I like that it's become a lot more smooth. There's not as many sort of structures within the block itself, like within the block face itself. And I actually like this a lot, so much so that I'm actually going to move it over here to the green blocks I really like section. So that's that. So let's talk now about the Granite, Andesite, and Diorite. The Andesite, I think, does need to change. And actually, I put it over there on the blocks that need to be changed. The reason I think it should be changed is because it doesn't work very well with stone, which is where players are primarily going to see it, and what players primarily use nowadays to make things look good. You can see it has sort of a purplish hue. If I go ahead and just make a 2x2 here, we should really be able to see it. It has sort of a purplish hue, which contrasts quite a bit with the stone, especially as you get further away. Although I understand it's not stone, and it does work somewhat well with the polished andesite. But it also feels a little bit too cobbled for me. Same goes for the granite. It's a little bit too cobbled in my opinion. You can see it with cobblestone. It looks very similar, but just a different color. The diorite, though, I actually do like the diorite. It's not quite, it doesn't suffer that same cobbling effect. And yeah, it looks pretty good, actually. It looks pretty unique. It looks a lot better than it did before. So I'd say this is an improvement over the version 1. So yeah, those are my thoughts on andesite, granite, and the diorite. So moving on now to the next one. Next one we have Prismarine. Here's the version 1 and here's the version 2. The only real change is that the primary color for dark Prismarine changed from sort of this dark green color to a more teal color. Which I prefer the old one, but I can live with this one, so I'm not really too bothered by this. So yeah, I think, yeah, the Prismarine are all still very good. I like these blocks. I might prefer the version 1 of the dark Prismarine now, but it's a small detail. Next set of blocks, we have the wood blocks. These didn't really change too much. Here's the version 1, here's the version 2. Only one that really changed was the birch wood, and it became a lot more crisp on the side. I think, yeah, the improvement on the side of the birch definitely makes it feel more like a tree. And yeah, I think that is an improvement, so I'm happy with the birch log change. One quick note before I move on to some of the other textures that changed. I still feel like the wood textures, actually all the wood textures, need to change quite a bit. It feels very plasticky when you have a lot of wood. Let me show you an example from Hermitcraft here. So we're in my base on Hermitcraft now, and you can see sort of how the wood here sort of interacts with the jungle wood. So we have spruce wood stairs here and jungle wood logs. And you can see the transition here, especially if I get out a little bit further, is not really too bad. It actually blends quite well with the wood plank stairs and the wood logs here. Also, there's sort of like an interesting pattern on the ceiling, and it doesn't look too overwhelming. I mean, it is a lot of wood, but it's not overpowering. Now, if I switch to the version 2 of the texture pack, the new texture pack, the soon-to-be textures, you can see immediately there is a massive contrast here with the wood stairs and the wood planks. And also the roof looks a little bit plasticky now. Like it pops out just a little bit too much. And the same with these stairs, especially from close up. They look a little bit fake and plasticky. So that's something I'd like to see addressed in a future version of the new textures. So yeah, you can see from any large amount of wood, it still feels like the wood is plasticky and fake. And that I think the problem is the very sharp definition between the pixels making up the plank itself and the gaps between the planks, or the sort of the depressions between the planks. So hopefully that is fixed soon. I am going to put these blocks, these wood blocks, over in the blocks that I think should be changed. I'm just going to put one wood block there, but I think all of them suffer from the same problem. So if you fix one, then I think all of them will be fixed. Moving on to some of the other items, here is the change in armor. So here's the version 1, and here's the version 2. You see the leather didn't actually change, which I'm not sure if that's intentional or not. So the only thing that really needs to change with the armor pieces is to make the chest plate a little bit bigger in physical size. Everything else looks pretty good. They're just slight changes, but I think they add a little bit of depth, especially around the outside, to the whole armor bit. So yeah, otherwise good changes. Just make the chest piece bigger. Next set of blocks is red sand, sandstone, and chiseled red sandstone. The only one that's changed since the version 1 is the chiseled red sandstone, which now once again has the wither on it. So thank you to Jappa for putting that back on. Thanks for listening to the community on that one. That looks really, really nice. And I really like all the rest of these textures, actually. I think these are all pretty good. The sandstone, I think the granulation could be changed maybe a little bit. Again, it suffers from the same problem with the cobblestoning effect. Like everything starts to look like cobblestone with these structures that are put in here. But yeah, maybe that could be changed a little bit. But otherwise, I think they're pretty good changes here. Next up, we got soul sand. I actually really liked soul sand before, and I still like it now. So here's the difference between the version 1 and the version 2. You can see the version 2, the faces, quote-unquote faces in the soul sand, are a little bit closer up and not as sort of like elongated as if it's like a ghoul in the sand. So yeah, I actually really like both these textures, both the version 1 and the version 2. The version 2 looks better, a little bit better up close, whereas the version 1 looked a little bit better further away, but I wouldn't have a problem with either one of these being in the game, as I think they both look pretty good. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the items that changed here. So here's a wall of items right here. And here is the version 1 textures, and here are the modern version 2 textures, and I'll just switch back and forth between those so you guys can see the differences. The main differences are the carrots. The carrots vastly improved. They're no longer so pointy, which is great to hear that Jappa listened to the community and changed them to not be so pointy. They still do obviously come to a point because they're a carrot, but yeah, they're not as extreme as they were, both the golden and the regular carrot. And as such, I'm actually going to move these over to be my favorite textures now. The textures I don't think need changing at all. The baked potato obviously changed as well. I think it looks really realistic now. Like you can see, you know, it's obviously split down the middle here, and yeah, it looks like you put this thing here, this potato, into a microwave or into an oven or into a furnace or whatever. So yeah, definitely a good choice there. Same with the poisonous potato. Looks a little bit better and not quite as funky as it was before. So yeah, definite improvement there. The tools have also changed a little bit. Let me just go back and forth once again between these textures. So yeah, you can see the tools are now a little bit darker. They actually pop out a little bit more, which I really like, and it almost makes like a 3D effect when you're looking at them in an item frame. So that's a much improved item. Rabbit's foot is also improved. So it used to be a very, very small rabbit's foot. Now it's quite large, and you can actually see it's like a realistic rabbit's foot. Like you can see like some of the toes there, and it goes up. There's the ankle, and it goes up to the bottom part of the leg there. So that's really cool to see. The beetroot. I like the beetroot. The beetroot has multiple branches off of it, which was a really nice detail that didn't have it at all before, actually. And also has this cool like curve here at the bottom. So yeah, I think this beetroot is actually really nice. Maybe making it a little bit bigger would help. It's a little bit small in relation to the other food items, but it also is kind of small in real life. So I guess that sort of makes sense. So yeah, the beetroot I really like as well, especially these multiple shoots off the top of it. That looks really cool. The disc 11. Disc 11 has changed. Instead of just being a broken disc, there's also this broken piece off right here, which actually that has made it one of my favorites right now. I think that is vastly improved from what it was, just by adding that little detail there, which is great. The cocoa beans also have improved a lot. It looked a little bit like, well, let's just say it looked a little bit like some bodily function before in the previous version. So yeah, cocoa beans definitely improved. They look like cocoa beans now, and I'm putting this on the good texture wall now. So yeah, just like a collection of beans there now. So that's great. The snowball changed. The snowball is a little bit less blue. However, I still think it could be reduced even further. The same with the snow block, actually, because I just don't see this much blue in snow. So I'm actually going to put that into the section which I think should be improved. And actually, I have a couple of blocks here which I think should be improved. It does go with the regular snow block, but I think the snow block itself is actually a little bit too blue as well. So like if I put this down here, you'll see, yeah, it actually fits quite well with the snow block, but I feel like just a little bit more reduction in the blue would be great. So I'm going to put that block, the snow block, over there in the needs to be changed category. Speaking of other blocks that changed here, the red mushroom. Jappa listened to our feedback on the red mushroom. He got rid of the very pointy, very brightly red colored top section and made it a little bit more like the brown. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with this. It still is a little on the bright side, but I'm not complaining. It definitely is a lot improved from what it was previously, so it doesn't stick out as much, and the very top super bright section is gone. So yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. Also, the wheat. I had complained about this a lot in my video, and Jappa listened to our feedback, and he colored the wheat. Let me just switch between the version 1 and the version 2 a few times here. He switched the wheat to be more green. So yeah, definitely improved. The fully grown wheat definitely looking a lot more like it's fully grown. It's not so golden as it was before, so thumbs up on that one from me. A few more comments I want to make here before I go. A few more areas that I think still need to be improved. The crops here still have this neon green bit. It's a very bright green. And so I think it sort of has the opposite problem that we have with the wheat. It's just a little bit too green. It's a little bit too vibrant on the tops of these plants. So maybe just reducing that ever so slightly would do wonders, like just adding the little bit of green did for the wheat. So that's just sort of a nitpicky thing, but I think it would definitely improve it quite significantly. Just a little bit less green on the tops of these carrots, potatoes, and beetroots. Also, I want to draw more attention to these blocks, the mushroom blocks, mushroom island blocks. I think that all these still need a little bit of work. They all, to me, especially this brown mushroom block, feel like a bit of a downgrade from what we currently have. So here's the textures as they are now. And if I just go ahead and switch off this resource pack back to the default textures now, you can see there's a lot more detail in this. It's a lot more clearly defined in this, and the mycelium even looks a little bit more exciting, I guess. A little bit more not like sort of blended together, I guess. So I'd like to see all three of these reworked if possible, because I feel like the Mushroom Island should be a place where people want to go, where people, they want to see, they want to see the giant mushrooms, they want to see the mycelium. Like that's what they go to the Mushroom Island for, and the mushroom cows. And I feel like just blending all the colors together like they did in the pack here. Let me just get the version 2 out. There we go. You can see they're all just sort of blended together, and they don't really, I think they all look just slightly more dull, basically, which I feel is a step in the wrong direction. So hopefully they can rework those blocks. So one final block that I wish that Jappa would take a look at is the Glowstone Block. I said this in the previous video, and the reason is because of what I think is a fundamental difference between the way that the block is portrayed here, in my view, and what I perceive Glowstone to be as a block in the game. So I perceive it to be a separate block, almost like an ore block that you can find in the world. So like if you could find, let's say, like lapis lazuli, I perceive it to be the same as if, like, but in glowstone form. So instead of being like a nether quartz ore where it's stuck in netherrack like this when you find it naturally, this is what I think glowstone is not. And I think this portrays it as such. Like it seems like it's glowstone bits trapped in a block rather than a glowstone block itself. Like I feel like it's glowstone dust inside of a block, like this nether quartz is inside of netherrack. So I think that might be a fundamental disagreement between myself and what Jappa perceives it as, but I'm not entirely sure. But my perception of glowstone is that the entire block would have this type of texture here, like this granule here would be like the entire block, essentially, with just some slight variations to make it, you know, pop out a little bit. But if that's not the case, I'll shut up about it, but I feel like... yeah, both the glowstone and the glowstone ore texture should be more reflective of the glowing nature of the block, which is this granule right here, the colors in this granule right here, and not have this extra stuff in here, which to me looks like a totally separate block, just with glowstone bits inside of it. So that's my thoughts on the glowstone. So anyways, guys, that is my feedback on the version 2 of the textures. Hopefully this didn't go on for too long, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. Hopefully if Jappa watches this, he will see some good constructive feedback and be able to make changes similar to what he did with the version 1, which I think, yeah, definitely has some major changes compared to the version 2. So, yeah, thanks to Jappa for listening to our feedback, and yeah, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know, am I right, am I wrong on some of these textures? Am I thinking about it in the wrong way or the right way? Let me know in the comments section, and yeah, hopefully together we can continue to improve this texture pack by providing some good feedback to Jappa. But anyways, guys, that will be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Cub. Goodbye.